The late autumn wind howled through the dense pine forest bordering the old family cabin, carrying the sharp scent of frost and distant smoke. Sergeant Elias Kane had retreated here after his last tour, seeking silence to quiet the ghosts that still whispered in his nightmares. The war in the eastern mountains had ended months ago, but the ceasefire felt fragile, like thin ice over a deep lake. Elias kept mostly to himself, chopping wood, tending a small garden, and trying to forget the faces of men he had lost. His only constant companion was Max, a large German shepherd with intelligent amber eyes and a coat the color of charred wood. Max had served beside him in the same unit, sniffing out explosives, guarding perimeters, and once dragging a wounded comrade to safety under heavy fire. The dog had earned his retirement the hard way, just like Elias. They understood each other without words, a shared language of loyalty forged in blood and survival. That evening, as twilight painted the sky in bruised purples and grays, Elias sat on the porch steps sharpening his old hunting knife when Max suddenly froze. The dog's ears pricked forward, body tense, a low growl rumbling in his chest. Elias's hand stilled on the blade. "What is it, boy?" Max didn't bark. Instead, he bolted into the trees, paws silent on the frost-hardened ground. Elias cursed under his breath, grabbing a flashlight and his rifle before following. The forest swallowed him quickly, branches snagging at his jacket as he pushed through the underbrush. Max's barks echoed ahead, urgent, insistent, not the playful sound he made when chasing squirrels, but the sharp alert he used in the field when lives hung in the balance. Elias's heart pounded with a familiar mix of adrenaline and dread. Had poachers crossed the boundary again? Or worse? Remnants of the enemy forces that refused to accept the peace treaty? The war had left scars on both sides, and old hatreds died slowly in these remote hills. He broke into a small clearing near the rocky stream and skidded to a halt. Max stood over a figure slumped against a fallen log, the dog's nose nudging the man's shoulder repeatedly while whining softly. The stranger was dressed in tattered enemy fatigues. Faded gray-green with the distinctive red insignia of the Eastern Coalition still visible on his torn sleeve. Blood stained his side and leg, dark and sticky in the fading light. His face was pale, young, barely 25, with sharp cheekbones and closed eyes framed by dark lashes. A deep gash ran along his ribs, and his breathing came in shallow, labored gasps. A discarded rifle lay several feet away, half buried in leaves. An enemy soldier. Wounded. Alone. Deep in territory that technically belonged to Elias's side. The suspense hit Elias like a cold wave. His finger twitched near the trigger of his rifle. One shot and this threat would be eliminated. No one would ever know. The forest would swallow the secret, and the fragile peace would remain undisturbed. Memories flashed, his squad ambushed, friends dying in the mud, the screams that still woke him at night. This man could be one of the ones who had pulled the trigger. But Max refused to move. The dog positioned himself protectively between Elias and the wounded soldier, amber eyes locked on his owner with unwavering trust. He whined again, tail low, then gently licked the man's bloodied hand as if urging mercy. Elias lowered the rifle slightly, breath visible in the chill air. "Damn it, Max. He's the enemy." The dog didn't budge. Instead, he lay down beside the stranger, resting his head on the man's uninjured leg, a clear signal he had made his choice. The emotional weight pressed down on Elias's chest. Max had never been wrong about people. During the war, the dog had growled at traitors and comforted the dying on both sides when no one else would. Now he was alerting his owner not to kill, but to save. Elias approached slowly, boots crunching on fallen leaves. The young soldier stirred at the sound, eyes fluttering open, dark brown, glazed with pain and fear. When he saw Elias and the rifle, he tried to reach for his weapon, but a groan of agony stopped him. "Please," he rasped in heavily accented English. I surrendered weeks ago. Got separated. Tried to make it to the border. Wolves, or maybe just bad luck. His voice cracked, revealing the terror beneath the uniform. Up close, he looked even younger, scared, exhausted, human. Not a monster. Just another man caught in a war that had chewed them both up. Elias knelt beside him, keeping the rifle close but not aimed. Max nudged the soldier's hand again, encouraging contact. The man's fingers twitched, weakly stroking the dog's fur. "Good boy," he whispered, a faint, broken smile touching his lips. "You found me." The simple act of kindness from the enemy, petting the dog that had once hunted his kind, twisted something deep inside Elias. Tears burned unexpectedly in his eyes. He had spent years hating the uniform this boy wore, yet here was Max, bridging the impossible gap with nothing but instinct and loyalty. "You're bleeding bad," Elias said gruffly, setting the rifle down and shrugging off his heavy jacket. He tore strips from his own shirt to improvise bandages, pressing them firmly against the worst wound. The soldier hissed in pain but didn't resist. "What's your name?" "Alexei." "Petrova," the young man answered through gritted teeth. "Corporal. I didn't want to fight anymore. Too many friends gone. I just wanted to go home." Elias worked in silence for several minutes, the forest around them holding its breath. The wind whispered through the pines like distant ghosts. Suspense coiled tight in his gut. What if patrols from his own side found them? What if helping the enemy made him a traitor? What if Alexei was lying and this was some kind of trap? Yet Max remained calm, tail thumping softly against the ground, his presence a steady anchor in the storm of conflicting emotions. As Elias tightened the makeshift bandage, Alexei's hand weakly grasped his wrist. Why help me? I am the enemy." The question hung heavy in the cold air. Elias met the young man's eyes, seeing his own reflection in them, haunted, tired, searching for meaning after the violence. "Because my dog chose you," he said quietly, voice thick with emotion. "Max has seen more death than most men. If he says you're worth saving, then maybe the war is really over for both of us." Tears slipped down Alexei's pale cheeks, mixing with the dirt and blood. "No one has shown kindness since the ceasefire. They call us monsters still. But your dog, he treats me like a man." Max lifted his head and licked Alexei's face gently, eliciting a weak, watery laugh from the wounded soldier. The sound was small but profound, cracking open the hardened shell around Elias's heart. For the first time in months, the cabin didn't feel quite so empty. The weight of grief and anger that had pressed on him like an anvil began to lift, replaced by something fragile and new, hope that healing could cross even the deepest divides. Elias helped Alexei to his feet, draping the young man's arm over his shoulders. The soldier was heavier than he looked, but Elias bore the weight without complaint. Max trotted ahead, occasionally glancing back to ensure they followed, his barks now softer, guiding them through the darkening forest like a living compass. The journey back to the cabin felt endless. Every step sent fresh pain through Alexei's body, but he gritted his teeth and kept moving. Elias talked to distract him. About the cabin, about Clara's garden that still bloomed stubbornly each spring, about the quiet nights where the stars seemed close enough to touch. Alexei shared fragments in return, a mother waiting in a ruined village, a little sister who sent letters with drawings of birds, the fear that had driven him to desert his post rather than take another life. By the time they reached the porch, both men were breathing hard, sweat mixing with the chill. Elias lowered Alexei onto the old couch near the fireplace and immediately set to work, boiling water, fetching the medical kit he had kept from his service days, brewing strong tea laced with pain-relieving herbs. Max curled up at Alexei's feet, watchful and protective, his presence a silent promise that no harm would come. As Elias cleaned the deeper wounds under the warm glow of the oil lamp, the emotional intensity peaked.